The legacy media shows its bias again by obsessing with a floor crosser to cover up the fact that the budget totally sucks and Canada kills a bunch of ostriches.
And what do we think about that? Yeah, I was watching and reading about this article. This top story here in Canada. What happened was in BC.
There was a floor crosser.
Not in BC.
Oh no, what happened to BC?
On the other side of the whole country, Adam.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, in that province over there.
I didn't know anything else happened. That's
a bunch of big chickens were killed.
Big chickens.
Ostriches specifically.
And why?
Why?
Why would anyone do that?
Well, there's probably reason. You know what? It's kind of interesting how this reached into our social media and made a big stink. But you know what? The reason that they did it is because of, I forget what the exact name is. If I butcher it, you guys can look it up. It's like H5N1 or something like that. It's what is also known as the bird flu. They had about 60-something ostriches last year at this farm that caught the bird flu, were killed, and then or died of the bird flu, and then the rest of them had to be killed because Canada has a policy in place where they basically decide that they are going to eradicate the entire flock just because some of them got sick. Because it's a serious virus that kills, that can affect people and animals. So, and it could affect chickens. There is something like a $7 billion market in Canada for chickens, actually.
Yes.
That is the main reason that the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, CFIA, if you see that on the memes, that's what that means. That's what that stands for.
Mm-hmm. Had
decided to kill all of these big, gigantic, foreign chickens. The ostriches. But you know what? It made a big stink for over a year because it was actually started in 2024. You know that?
Well, why did it go on so long?
Because some of the birds kind of recuperated from the virus, and we were curious as to if they built up some kind of immunity. And this is the reason that RFK Jr. and some billionaires in the States interjected and took this to the courts and said, you know what? Don't kill these animals. There's research that could possibly be done. And I think, in fairness to learning about diseases and how they transpire in animals and in livestock like this, we should consider it. Don't you think?
We should, but I mean, was there a risk to other birds or to people? Like, were there still birds that were ill in the flock?
No, they had mostly recovered. They had not found any new sick birds since the initial virus went through. That was the interesting part of this scenario, and why they made an even bigger stink about it, because Canada has a policy in place. The administration for what is it? I just said it. The Canadian Food CFIA Inspection Agency. They have a standard policy when it comes to this, and it's just to kill everything involved in the area where there was this virus, regardless of maybe what may be more sensical to try. That's just their policy.
So allegedly, there were no more sick birds. Some birds did die, though, right? I believe 69 birds.
There was quite a few birds that died initially, yeah.
So because it took so long, there were no longer any ill birds, but they just decided to kill them all anyways, because I guess the policy doesn't have any kind of time constraint on it. But it seems, from an outside perspective, it seems awfully pointless and just like senseless killing of animals.
Yes, and as of recently today, the lawsuit is going against the CFIA about this issue and the matter of how they went about culling these birds. Because I say culling because that sounds fanciful, but really they just shot them dead in a pen full of their fellow birds. Like they're all flying. They're all they're not flying because they're ostriches. They're all sitting around.
Well, they're probably not sitting around if they're being shot.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. They were sitting around up until the first shots rang out by the marksman.
Professional marksman.
The professional marksman that the administration apparently hired to kill these birds. And then you'd imagine what happened. These birds were just running around, and the marksmen were picking them off, and there was something like 300 and something of these birds that they had to shoot dead. So, I mean, not really the most humane method of killing these birds, and lawsuits are being filed at this point in time on this matter.
Yeah, it's not really a good look for Canada to be, have the world talking about something like this. Like the fact that they couldn't just, wade into it a little bit and determine if there was any illness, if there was any threat. And they're kind of just doubling down. It's like, because you didn't let us kill these before, we're killing them now. And that's that. We'll just sit here and shoot them all. It's, it seems inhumane.
I know, and this is something I can see from both sides of defense on this, like how it could be inhumane, not necessary killing of birds, and it also could be a drastic measure that needs to be taken. I can see both sides of the article of the instance here, but I want to look at this from a different perspective. I have an article I'm going to pull up here. Mm-hmm. Ostrich farm case shows power of social media. This is an interesting article that this Robert Arneson.
The Western Producer.
I don't know. This is the first time I've read an article by the Western Producer, but I am always interested in reading new media.
So is this legacy media?
No.
No.
This is new media.
Okay.
Yes, we'll get into that. Winnipeg. In the age, I guess this guy is from the Western Producer is from Winnipeg.
Oh, interesting.
In an age of social media, online influencers, algorithms, it becomes nearly impossible to predict which story will become an online juggernaut. In a recent and much publicized case, infected birds at a Canadian ostrich farm became a global controversy that drove immense traffic to news websites. This is a good example of how almost any event can be made into a political wedge issue, said Timothy Caulfield of University of Alberta, professor and author of numerous books about scientific communication. Now, I've read the whole article. You can go and find it on the Western Producer if you wish. But basically, the article sums up exactly how different sides of the issue in this case, social media and the farmers that raised the ostriches and the billionaires that had added money to this defense case, as well as the CFIA, which basically just went about as governments do whatever they want. Mm-hmm. The social media, however, you would see in social media that the ostrich story was a tragedy, and this critic says here that the CFIA has not been able to withstand the media pressure on social media. That is basically what they're saying, and he's pointing out to the case. He draws back to the times in the COVID days when there was much less trust in the government, and because of that, things like people not taking vaccines for measles, they end up having a loss of their vaccine or their measles-free status here in Canada.
You've gone off on a tangent.
Well, the point is he's drawing a conclusion saying that the scientists and the government are not doing a good job on social media, and social media is a lot stronger.
That's where lots of people are getting their information.
Yes.
Making their decisions.
On much more than on the mainstream media.
The mainstream media. Why do they call it that, Josh?
Why do they call it that? Well, let's chase that rabbit for a moment.
Yeah. Pull on that thread, as they might say.
But yeah, they call it the mainstream media because, obviously, Adam, it is what was prominent on everybody's television back in the day. They had 3 main channels back in the day. Remember when your grandparents told you that? And we watched whatever it was. And here in Canada, it was basically only one, CBC. Mm-hmm. And then maybe CTV came about later. And then eventually Global News. And maybe they still have that other channel.
I think Global was called CKND.
That's okay. We're old people now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but that's why they call it mainstream, because that was mainstream, mainly what you saw, and now that's what they call it.
Do they call it the mainstream media, or does it have another name now?
Well, I call it many things because I have a distrust, as this article from the Western Producer points out. I am one of those people that distrust the mainstream media. I would call it something, but I would not like to say those words on the internet because I am trying to be polite for a change.
That's new.
What else? Do you have any other names?
I've heard it called the legacy media.
Legacy media. That is
term
true.
Thrown around a lot these days.
Legacy. I have called it the legacy media, but I haven't used that term. Why should I use mainstream media or legacy media? Does it really matter?
I don't know. I mean, both terms I think are kind of being used now to attempt to discredit it. And I think the mainstream media, the legacy media, whatever you call it, has fully earned that treatment from many people who are basically disenchanted with their reporting and the lack of facts, the lack of follow-ups, the fact that there is there's like not even a veiled attempt to hide your bias. I mean, that we know where the money is coming from for these different sources of media, and they're not really hiding the government is funding a lot. I mean, CBC obviously all of their funding, so I think they deserve to be discredited at this point because they are not attempting to report facts. They're reporting their opinions, and they're trying to quell opinions that they don't agree with. So that's why I think we're hearing those terms thrown around a lot these days, and I think it's correct.
Well, that leads on to our next discussion point that we would like to bring up, and that is the big bad budget and who really made the news recently.
Now, you can't talk about the budget. We need to talk about Pierre Poilievre and his party of floor crossers.
Exactly.
And quitters.
Adam is making the point. That is exactly what the media has been doing. We recently had a budget of types.
Which is important, by the way.
It tells us how our tax dollars are being spent, or at least it should.
We should care about that.
And the news media should be criticizing that mainly and telling us how it's good or bad, at least criticizing it and making the government justify what they're doing.
Hold politicians to account. Ask them why they're doing what they're doing. There's too much just assumption that because they're a liberal government, they're doing the correct thing, and anyone who's questioning them has to justify why they question them. We should all question the government because they're making decisions with our money and our future and the future of our children or whatever. It's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous that we sit here day after day and listen to these government-funded, people just acting like everything the government does is perfect, and anyone who questions them is like just a distasteful person. It is so very frustrating. Josh, how do you feel about it?
I'm disheartened, and I do not trust the media. I mean, this is case in point. The media should be criticizing Carney
and his budget
and all of the money that has gone from Canadian taxpayers to the government should be accounted for and explained away by Mark Carney and the Liberal Party. Instead, this legacy media seems to want to focus on something completely different. In fact, I have a video of a specific CBC reporter trying to get carried away with a completely different story rather than the criticism you should hear.
Aaron Collins, CBC. So Chris D'Entremont, just turning back to last week, said that your party is being run like a frat house. So I'm just curious what you think he means by that, and if you think.
Well, I think that CBC had to be. Are you with CBC, by the way?
Yeah, that's what.
Oh, okay, great.
I'm just curious if you think that could lead to more MPs leaving your caucus, and what you think he means by that.
Well, first of all, CBC has had to correct the falsehoods that they put into that story. So I encourage you to tell Canadians about the falsehoods you published and explain why you did that. But I would ask if you agree with Mr. d'Entremont, or do you believe he was telling the truth when he said, and I'm going to quote, "Now, after 6 months under a new Prime Minister who promised financial discipline, Canadians are still waiting. He said that he would be judged by the cost at the grocery store. Well, Canadians are judging him, and they are not impressed. Since the Liberals came to power, food prices have risen 40%. We have heard it many times here today. It is deliberate, and it is unacceptable. It is inhumane for a G7 country." Mr. d'Entremont said that Liberal food price inflation is inhumane. Do you believe that he was telling the truth when he said that? Yes. Oh, you can.
Want to ask me questions?
I did already. I already said that.
So what's happening in this video is here. CBC specifically asked them a question, right, Adam?
They did ask.
What was the focus of that question?
The focus of the question was not the budget.
Inhumane.
It was to discredit Poilievre's leadership and his party. And that's one of the big problems is we have this CBC that's supposed to be an unbiased source of news, you know, maintain its independence or whatever the heck the government wrote in our budget. And instead they're just out there trying to ask whatever question they can to undermine
The leadership of this.
the leadership of the opposing party.
Yeah, that's not even the government.
Yeah, they're not even the government. They're not making the decisions for what is happening to us right now. And yet this, you know, these media sources are all out there just trying to discredit the non-government instead of talking about the major occurrences that our government is doing and are happening. And it justifies why we criticize the mainstream legacy media, whatever you want to call it, because they are focused on something completely irrelevant. The leadership of Pierre Poilievre, everyone was trying to talk about it for a while here on the mainstream media. Because why? Because the government. Because the budget sucks, Josh.
Exactly.
It sucks. And it's bad, and it's bad for all of us.
And it's only good for the CBC because the CBC continues to be funded.
An extra $150 million for the CBC
this year alone in the budget,
on top of their $1.5 billion they already get.
And this guy Pierre Poilievre has threatened to make them be independent and honest.
And they don't like that.
Exactly.
Because then they would have to create content that people want to watch.
I mean, that Chris d'Entremont, he basically decided to become a liberal and try to blame the Pierre Poilievre and his leadership style. And the media tried to run with it. Pierre, in this last video, was basically just stating that, why do you take him at his word then, but you don't take him at his word? And then he pointed out a specific time when Chris d'Entremont was a conservative criticizing the government.
Yeah,
they don't point that out.
Same guy
said something different.
Two different viewpoints, which, you know, we'll put that kind of flip-flopping aside.
That kind of hypocrisy can go straight to the Liberal Party.
Yeah, that's where he deserves to be. And you know, there's credibility in what he says if he's a liberal, you know, tearing down some conservatives. But if he's a conservative pointing out the failures of the Liberal government, then no credibility. We'd never heard of him before. The media never cared who this guy was. Some backbencher. He wasn't a minister. He didn't matter to anyone really other than his constituents. And then all of a sudden, because he crosses the party of the Liberals and talks a bunch of shit about the conservatives, he's the most important guy ever. Like, tell me what kind of crap that is.
I don't know. The thing I gets me the most on this is people still trust the media. They don't pay attention, really, Adam. That's what it is. People aren't like you and me. They're not big political nerds that watch legacy media, and they don't like to actually know what is going on. No. They just read headlines. And the thing about the last article where Chris d'Entremont actually said something and CBC wrote about it, you know what happened in that article? It was just in the video. They retracted it. That means that CBC made a mistake when they aired it, and then they continue to go about the same narrative of how Pierre is bad, despite the fact that the CBC has a separate website in which they have retracted what was originally said in that article. But it doesn't matter, because people
They're still
are kind of
pushing the
dumb.
narrative.
And people only listen to the first thing that they heard. They don't follow the actual details like us nerds do, and actually say, you know what, they were wrong. So you know what? Find somebody that you can trust. It's not the CBC. It's not
Global News or
CTV. There may be the odd person that may do a good job occasionally.
Some of them are okay.
But what you need to find is somebody that can look at something from both sides, or you need to find somebody that is welcoming both arguments of an issue, because it's the only way you're going to get it. It's like, listen to the lefties, listen to the righties, and figure out where the truth is and have a discussion.
Right.
This is the reason that we went through this whole discussion earlier about mainstream media, because mainstream media is often compared to something else. And what is that? Podcasts, YouTube, and what do they call it? Social media. That's where the whole entire ostrich story took place. The government had almost no representation on social media, so they look like the big baddies in this scenario. Maybe that's true. Maybe they had justification for it. The point is, mainstream media did not help them in this case. Social media did not help them in this case. They look like a bunch of idiots. On the opposite end of mainstream media, they could be pushing a narrative. Nobody will actually understand or listen to an opposing view because they can't get it, or they don't trust it because it's on YouTube or it's on the internet. But there are lots of reliable people in Canada alone. You can listen to who is it? You can listen to the Brian Lillys, the Jasmine Lanes, and Elevate Podcast. Any of those guys, right?
Yeah, the Northern Perspective. There's lots of good ones.
Or one of our favorite there. Hey guys, Wyatt Claypool here.
Ahoy there.
Yeah. I recommend that most of you out there find somebody you trust and listen to the discussion and criticize them, because that's what they need. That's what we need. We enjoy doing a podcast like that as well. I hope you tune in and subscribe to us and share us with your friends.